In today's video of Examiner's Secrets, the golden rules of how to do a perfect reverse bay park for your driving test. And this is going to show you exactly what the examiner wants to see when performing the reverse bay park. When you're asked to do the reverse bay park, it can actually be in any car park that the examiner chooses. However, it's more than likely going to be in a very familiar one because after all, it's got to be on your driving test route, which is good for you because it means your local driving instructors in the area will all know where they are. All this information in my online driving course at joshadrivinginstructor.com. For the cost of one driving lesson, it's got your forward, reverse, upside down, inside out parking, everything you need and everything else you need for your driving test as well, so have a look at that. Now chances are whichever car park the examiner chooses is going to be reasonably quiet. They're not going to take you to Aldi or Tesco retail park and expect you to do one in front of thousands of people, so don't stress. The examiner also doesn't care which method you use to reverse bay park. You are absolutely fine to use a 3-in-line method. If that's the easiest one for you, and it is for most people learning to drive, there's no problem with that. However, if you're a bit more experienced and you're used to using the 45-degree method, again, there's nothing wrong with that either. The examiner's just not going to care. Now, I don't actually remember the last time I've ever had a student fail for the reverse bay park in the last 4 years of driving. If I've ever actually had one fail, I can't remember, and I'll show you why. Now, there are 4 golden rules that I share with my students and help them keep those 4 golden rules at the front of their mind when those driving test nerves kick in and start trying to overtake and make us do silly things. If you keep the 4 rules in the front of your mind, you're going to be absolutely fine. The only thing that matters is that you finish your reverse bay park inside those 3 white lines. It doesn't matter if you're too close to one side or you're too close to the other. It doesn't matter if your car's at a 45-degree angle and one wheel's touching this line and one wheel's touching that line. I've actually had a girl who's done that and she passed no problem. Think about it, okay? If they had any other way of doing this, the examiner would need to get a ruler out the car. They'd have to start measuring from one wheel to the line, from this wheel to that line. They'd have to get their protractors out to check on the angle of the dangle of the car. It wouldn't work. So it's nice and simple. You're either in or you're out. You don't need perfection. Practice perfection for the rest of your life. Rule number 2, as the saying goes, the show must go on. It doesn't matter if you cross over the white lines, it's how you finish. When you're reversing into that bay, maybe your wheel's going to cut over 1 or 2 white lines. It doesn't matter, you won't even be marked down for that, as long as you finish with that car inside the 3 white lines. The only time you're going to be marked down is if you don't finish inside the white lines, you'll end up with a serious fault, or if you have to shunt the car. Shunting means when you have to pull back out the space because you're not inside the lines and then reverse back. If you do have to shunt the car, it's also absolutely fine. You'll just end up with a driving fault known as a minor. Just to reiterate though, you must finish with that car inside the white lines. If the car's not inside the white lines, you do need to shunt it because you will definitely fail. Touching the white lines, fine. At an angle inside the white lines, no problemo. But it must be in the white lines. Okay, rule number 3, walking pace.
When we talk about a walking pace on your driving test, this is what we're talking about, a walking speed where I can keep up with the car. No faster than that. If you're going any faster than that, you're going to make mistakes. You're not going to be able to look behind you properly. You're not going to be able to observe properly. It's that simple. Walking pace, or also known as snail pace. Crikey, they're outdoing me.
Think about it this way. Slow shows the examiner great clutch control, really good control of the car. I can control this car like a champion. Fast does not show Lewis Hamilton Pro. Fast shows you don't know what the hell you're doing, you can't control the car properly, and you're not ready for your driving license. And think about this, the faster you do the maneuver, the less time you're actually got to have a look around the car. Keep an eye on which Tom, Dick and Harry is walking across the car with their trolley behind you as you're trying to park the frigging car. Which brings us to the final one. Being aware of what's around you, also known as observations. If you get marked down for this, it would be observation. It just simply means knowing what's going on. And it's quite simple. Think about it like this. When we drive forward, where do we look? We look out the front window.
So let's have a look at the observations when you're reversing. Before you even start the maneuvers, you have a look around. You get yourself in position, you fall out the wheel, we start looking over the shoulder in the direction we're turning. Keeping an eye the other way as well as the mirrors. So it is a bit of moving that head a lot. Now I can see out of all 3 windows here. Okay, that one not great, but I'm still going to catch something out the corner of my eye.
But it's that simple. When we're driving backwards, we should be looking out the back window. And when you're looking behind you, you can actually see out of 2 windows at least. And I can even catch the corner of my eye out of the 3rd window as well. I'm going to start seeing if someone's crossing the road next to me or walking past the car. Whereas if I stare in that central mirror, I can just see the back window and that's it, which is no good if it's cars or people coming that way. And think about it this way, you know, you go to Aldi or you go to Tesco and you're reversing in your bay, you know, minding your own business, la la la. Those people that are all around you, are they thinking about you reversing, or are they thinking about how quickly can I get my shopping, get back in my car and get friggin' home? Yeah, it's the latter. They're not thinking about you. They don't care about your reversing at all. So it's your job to be aware and not run the poor sausages over, which means you've got to be looking around you at all times. Now, the problem students sometimes do have with this is when you do your reverse bay parking maneuver, as I mentioned before, it's going to be in a really quiet car park, okay? You might be lucky if you see another car moving at all. The problem with this is, you know it's really quiet, so then you're thinking, well, what's the point in looking behind me? There's obviously not going to be anything there. But for this maneuver, you need to imagine you are in that Aldi car park or that Tesco retail park where there is cars everywhere. You're surrounded by cars. It's like one giant crazy car park full of cars and people. I mean, the way you've got to think about it is the examiner's watching you do this maneuver for what? 1 minute of your 40-minute driving test? And if you aren't showing that examiner that you're actually looking around, you know, on this really quiet car park, keeping an eye on what's going on while you're reversing, then why would they expect that you're going to go off and do that when you actually do go to a really busy car park? As far as they're concerned, you're not. And that's when you're going to end up with your serious fault. So instead, as we're reversing back, we've got loads of observations, keeping an eye all around the car constantly. We stop the maneuvers as many times as we want. We can dry steer all we want. We're not going to be marked down on any of that. That's really good. Gives us control, gives us time to think. Maybe you get yourself muddled with which way to turn the wheel. As long as you're doing your observations and you do it nice and slowly, you can't really go wrong. Okay, now the moment of truth. We're going to put everything we've learned and talked about in the reverse bay park, all those golden rules, and we're going to put them into practice now with an example. So here we go. First golden rule. So when we actually come to do a reverse bay park, there's only really 3 really important parts, 3 golden rules. Okay, so golden rule number 1 of the reverse bay park. We always make sure we're on the opposite side of the bay, as close to the opposite side of the bay as possible to give us extra turning room to get into the bay. That means if we need a bit of wiggle room, we haven't got it quite perfect, we've got extra room. If you're really close to the bay, you're definitely going to go all over the lines, which doesn't matter, but you're going to have less room to try and fix it if you need to. Golden rule number 2, nice and simple, line up a white line halfway through the door. This could vary from car to car ever so slightly. All you've got to do is find the sweet spot, stick a bit of tape on the door, and then just line that up forevermore. Poet, and I didn't know it. For me, I know it's around here. It doesn't have to be exact. You've got a bit of wiggle room somewhere within there, because you've got to think, you've got a bit of wiggle room on each side of your car with the bay. So as long as it's within the vicinity, you're going to be absolutely fine. The important part is what you do with the car next. I teach people to just dry steer that wheel once they've lined it up. That way, it's always going to be the same. If you sometimes start moving the car before you steer, you're going to end up a little bit all over the place. So, a bit of dry steering, never hurt anyone as far as I'm concerned. At least it's going to be the same every time. Next, we have a look around, and then we just stick to the golden rules we talked about. Nice and slow, walking pace, really slow walking pace, just up and down with that clutch. Keeping an eye everywhere. And as we get round, I start to keep an eye on my mirrors. Really slow, nice walking pace. You can't do this too fast. If I need to stop, it's fine. Okay, I'm very close to this line. In fact, I'm going to go over this line, so I'm going to straighten my wheels up with 1.5 turns. Car's going to go over the line, which is absolutely fine. And I keep going until I know this wheel is inside that line. And I can see that with my beautiful tiny little mirror. Looking around again, nice and slow walking pace. Straighten my wheel back up because my car is now parallel with the line, nice and straight with the line. Looking behind me, check both sides, and I'm in. Keep going back, but don't hit the wall. Stop, neutral, perfection. Got all this information in my online driving course at joshuadrivinginstructor.com. All for the cost of 1 driving lesson. It's got your forward, reverse, upside down, inside out parking, everything you need and everything else you need for your driving test as well. So have a look at that. I'm Joshua Driving Instructor. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Good luck in your driving test, and I'll see you all soon.